Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Crypto Deep Dive. I'm Laurie.
And I'm Nick. Great to have you all with us.
This is episode 15, and we've got something a little different today. The last episode could have been felt as a bit of a downer. We focused on the factors that could make XRP continue on its sideways trajectory. So, let's play devil's advocate this time around, and we will be diving into a series of what-if scenarios around Ripple and XRP. June 2025 could be a pivotal month, with a convergence of events that might drive XRP into a major price rally.
Exactly. Now, none of this is financial advice, of course, but with major catalysts lining up, we thought it'd be fun and maybe useful to explore what could happen if things fall into place for XRP over the next few weeks.
Let's skip the markets. We will try and get out another episode later today where we can catch up on the asset prices. Maybe just as a general comment, El Presidente has pushed out his EU tariff deadline into July, and so far the market is reacting positively.
Now, just imagine how positive the market could be if we wouldn't have this constant flip-flopping.
Right. Let's kick things off with the big one, the potential approval of a spot XRP ETF. This one has the crypto world buzzing. What's the latest?
So the SEC is set to make a decision on Franklin Templeton's XRP ETF application by June 17th. That's just around the corner. If it's approved, we could be looking at a massive influx of institutional capital. JP Morgan estimates up to $8 billion in first-year inflows.
Wow, and what are the odds looking like?
Pretty strong. Analysts and prediction markets are putting the approval odds between 77 and 85%. It's not a done deal, but definitely within reach.
Let's say it does get approved. What could the immediate price impact look like?
Short term, we might see XRP spike within 24 to 48 hours. Some traders expect a retest of the all-time high around $3.84, and in very bullish scenarios, some are forecasting $10, even up to $27. Those numbers are speculative, but historically, spot ETF approvals, like with Bitcoin, have triggered major rallies.
The legal side of things is also important. Ripple finally cleared a major hurdle with the SEC lawsuit, right?
That's right. XRP is now officially recognized as not a security in the US, which removes a huge amount of regulatory uncertainty. This opens the doors for US banks, fintechs, and payment providers to integrate XRP for cross-border payments and other services.
So institutional adoption could accelerate now that there's legal clarity?
Absolutely. Regulation is one of the biggest blockers for institutional money. Now that it's resolved, we could see XRP integrated into more mainstream financial infrastructure. That kind of adoption doesn't always move price immediately, but it builds a foundation for sustainable demand.
Let's move into Ripple's business strategy. There's a lot of buzz about Ripple potentially acquiring Circle, the company behind USDC. How serious is this?
It's still speculative, but very plausible. If it happens, Ripple would become the world's second largest stablecoin operator. That means more control over digital payment infrastructure and deeper integration into the XRP ledger.
Could that shift how people use XRP?
Absolutely. It could drive new use cases, especially in enterprise payments and DeFi. Plus, developers and liquidity providers might flock to the ecosystem, which would be a huge boost for XRP's utility and perception.
Would an announcement at the XRPL APEX Summit, which is coming up soon, add fuel to the fire?
Oh, definitely. A major acquisition like that dropped at a developer summit could trigger a buy the news rally.
Let's talk about whales. There's been some interesting movement lately. Is that something we should be watching?
Big time. In recent weeks, large wallets have accumulated nearly 880 million XRP. We've also seen spikes in volume on South Korean exchanges, which, historically, have led major price swings.
What does sustained whale activity usually signal?
Typically, when whales accumulate, it suggests they're expecting a rally. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it's often a sign of confidence. If you combine that with a potential ETF approval, legal clarity, and macro tailwinds, you start to see how a perfect storm could form.
Now let's zoom out. What role do macroeconomic conditions play here?
A big one. If the Federal Reserve starts signaling rate cuts, or if we get other positive macro headlines like easing US-China trade tensions or lower inflation, that could drive risk on sentiment. And crypto is one of the first places capital flows to when markets turn bullish.
So XRP could benefit even more if global sentiment turns optimistic?
Exactly. XRP tends to follow broader market sentiment, so positive macro news could amplify any crypto-specific momentum we see in June.
We've touched on this a few times, but let's dig into the XRPL APEX event happening June 10 to 12. What are we expecting?
This year's summit is set to showcase some major upgrades. Think AI integration, real-world asset tokenization, and cross-chain interoperability. These are hot areas in crypto right now.
Could a single big announcement from that summit shift the market?
Totally. Developer events can spark major sentiment shifts, especially if Ripple announces key partnerships or product launches. It might not just excite investors, it can also drive real use and network growth.
Okay, Nick, let's get a little wild here. What if all of these things happen? ETF approval, macro tailwinds, circle acquisition, major summit announcements. What does that scenario look like?
In that case, we're talking about a near perfect alignment of bullish catalysts. If just one of these triggers happens, XRP could move sharply. But if two or three align, especially ETF approval plus legal clarity plus developer momentum, we might see XRP retest its all-time highs or even break into price discovery.
And what about timing? Could this all play out in a tight window?
Absolutely. The ETF decision, the APEX Summit, and potentially macro news could all hit in the first 3 weeks of June. That kind of timing has historically driven explosive moves, like we saw after the 2024 US election rally.
Let's recap on numbers. If things go well, not even perfectly, how high do some of the top analysts think XRP could go?
Some of the more aggressive targets suggest $3 to $10, with the most bullish models pointing to $27. That might sound outrageous, but it's based on projected inflows, market cycles, and past rallies.
Of course, this all comes with a healthy dose of caution.
Right, there's no guarantee. The market could underreact, or some of these catalysts might get delayed or fall through. But the potential is what makes June so intriguing.
This has been such a fascinating breakdown, Nick. So many moving parts, but also a ton of opportunity.
Exactly. And for listeners, the key takeaway is this. June 2025 could be a month where multiple powerful catalysts converge. Even if just one or two materialize, the impact on XRP and crypto in general could be substantial.
So keep your eyes on the ETF decision, the XRPL Summit, macro headlines, and Ripple's next moves.
And as always, do your own research, stay cautious, but stay curious.
That's all for this episode of the Crypto Deep Dive. If you liked this episode, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave us a review.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.